Sir, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Goswami.
Good morning, sir.
Morning. Good morning, Gaurav.
Morning, sir. We'll start, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
We'll start with the seminar now. Good morning, everyone. I'm Gaurav Paliwal, Manager, Public Relations, Oil India Limited. On behalf of Oil India Limited, I extend hearty welcome to all our guest participants to this webinar on extremely relevant topic of the time, hydrogen, the fuel of future. This webinar is a part of Sanrakshan Shamta Mahotsava, that is SAKSHAM 2022 campaign. Oil India Limited is India's second largest national exploration and production company, is actively participating in this campaign. The campaign being coordinated by Petroleum Conservation Research Association, PCRA, under the aegis of Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. The campaign is aimed at creating awareness among masses on conservation of petroleum products and adoption of green and clean technologies. Hydrogen has come to the center of interest lately. Today, the hydrogen-related technologies are being deployed on a large scale in various industries. It is being hailed as the fuel of future, which will help reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, decarbonize industry, and aid the transition to net zero. I'm glad to share that Oil India Limited is also entering into the domain of hydrogen by establishing 100 kilowatt green hydrogen plant in Jorhat, Assam, which is going to be commissioned very soon. The company is also promoting a few projects in the area of technology development related to hydrogen. As we start this webinar, we are privileged to have with us the august presence of Sri Sunil Kumar, Joint Secretary Refineries, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Sri Pankaj Kumar Goswami, Director Operations, Oil India Limited, Sri Naveen Gulati, Executive Director, Petroleum Conservation and Research Association. We are also joined by experts from industry and academia working in the field of hydrogen who will be reflecting on the theme of this webinar. Among our esteemed speakers, we have Mr. Siddharth R. Mayur, Founder, President, and CEO, S2E Systems Private Limited, Mr. Sturle Pedersen, Chairman, Greenstat Hydrogen India, Mr. CM Jain, President, Power Energy and Consultant, and we'll shortly be joined by Dr. Ranjit Thangavel from School of Energy Science and Engineering, IIT Guwahati. Without taking much time, I would now request Sri Pankaj Goswami, Director Operations Oil, to speak a few words on the seminar.
Good morning once again. Honorable Joint Secretary Refineries, Sri Sunil Kumar, ED PCRA, Mr. Naveen Gulati, experts from various fields, Mr. Thangewal from IIT Guwahati, Mr. Pedersen, Mr. Siddharth, and Mr. Jain, and other present dignitaries and participants. Let me take this opportunity to welcome you all to this important webinar on hydrogen, which has been named as the future fuel. Actually, I think hydrogen is no longer a fuel of future, but it has already started coming mainstream with the kinds of efforts put in by different countries and stakeholders in recent times. As per a leading research, the worldwide hydrogen value pool will increase about 650 to 850 billion USD in 2030 for its value of about 125 billion USD in the current year. That's a massive scale of opportunity and about 7 times growth in the coming 7 to 8 years. Coming to the background, under the Paris Agreement COP21, by the year 2030, India is committed to reduce its greenhouse emissions by 33 to 35% from the 2005 level. And in the subsequent last year to COP26 summit, Honorable Prime Minister of India, Sri Narendra Modi ji, announced that India will achieve net zero carbon emission by 2070. All these have set the stage for a massive transformation of the entire energy ecosystem in the country. We'll have to reimagine the way energy is produced, transmitted, and consumed to achieve that national target of net zero by 2070. I would say that the journey for the transformation has already begun. We have started to see activities at scales from different companies in different energy spaces to contribute towards this and leverage on the opportunities that this transition presents. It is said that green hydrogen is the ultimate fuel to power the sustainable future of the country. It has the potential to substitute today's transition fuel, that is the natural gas. And Government of India recently announced the National Hydrogen Mission in the Union Budget 21-22, initiating a hydrogen roadmap for the country. Government has also recently launched the Green Hydrogen Policy. Our Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, emphasizes that although efforts are ongoing for innovation on hydrogen front, the country should be ready for pilot-scale production of hydrogen and its use in various applications. Ministry is also of the view that India should be ready with large-scale production of electrodes for taking a lead in the ensuing hydrogen era. So the message is loud and clear that the country is very serious about development and making hydrogen a critical component of its energy portfolio. And as for Oil India Limited, as a company, it is consistently trying to contribute towards development of cleaner and greener energy. Oil forayed into the alternative energy domain in the year 2011 itself and has already established renewable energy capacity of 188 megawatt across the states of Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and Gujarat. Oil also established approximately 1 megawatt capacity of solar plants throughout its installations and offices in its operating areas. Specifically about hydrogen, Oil has identified various areas where the company could contribute towards development of hydrogen-based applications as well as use. The core areas that we have identified are: one is the captive for self-use, then the development of technology and promote indigenous manufacturing, and thirdly, production and supply of green hydrogen. Keeping in view the future emerging scenario and to keep itself in readiness by understanding the effects of hydrogen, Oil has established a green hydrogen pilot project in Jorhat, Assam. Also, Oil collaborated with IIT Guwahati for evaluating the effects of hydrogen on different processes of oil. Oil, in its efforts to contribute towards development of technology in the green hydrogen value chain, has recently incubated one startup to develop a 9M hydrogen fuel cell powered e-bus and a hydrogen carrier. Here I would like to point out that diffusion of any innovation such as hydrogen will have to be a collaborative effort of different stakeholders like government, companies, academia, R&D, and other interested groups. The policymakers will have to craft relevant policies incentivizing the production and use of hydrogen, which already is on the move. Organizations will have to pivot the entire development because they have the competencies and capital for such an innovation. Academia, R&D, and other interest groups will have to aid in technology development and in creating advocacy for mass adoption of this novel innovation. Then only the kind of future that we collectively envision with hydrogen will be possible. I am sure with the kind of eminent experts we have lined up for today, the webinar will throw light on various insights and perspectives about making hydrogen ecosystem a mainstream energy source in the coming years. With that expectation, let me again welcome everyone to today's webinar and let the subsequent proceedings begin. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I may now request our chief guest for the day, Sri Sunil Kumar, Joint Secretary, Refineries, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, to speak a few words on this webinar. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Gaurav. Shri Pankaj Kumar Goswami, Director Operations, Oil India Limited. PCRA, Mr. Naveen Gulati. Distinguished panelist, Dr. Thangawal, Mr. Jan, Mr. Pedersen, and Mr. Mayur. All participants of oil and gas and other sectors, good morning. I'm happy to join this webinar on hydrogen. This is a part of annual mass awareness campaign on fuel and energy conservation Mahotsav called SAKSHAM also. And this year SAKSHAM is being held from 11th to 30th April with a theme of clean and clean energy in Hindi, which reads as Harit and Swachh Urja Apnaye, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsava Manaye. In part of this, a series of special webinar on topics related to clean and clean energy has been planned by various oil and gas public sector units. And this is one of them. We are all aware, Mr. Goswami has also mentioned the launch of National Hydrogen Mission by Honorable PM on occasion of India's 75th Independence Day to help India meet its climate targets and make India a clean hydrogen hub. In this regard, I would tell that Government of India is in the process of framing a green hydrogen mission, and we all related ministries are also contributing and participating along with Ministry of Renewable and New Energy, which is the capital and the main main ministry for this mission. We all know it, though India is the third largest energy consumer in the world, we are with almost 1/3 of energy requirement fulfilled by oil and gas sector, yet our import dependence is about 85% in fossil fuel. So it's important for all of us to contribute in energy conservation in all the means possible, by supplementing, by replacing, by saving, etc. It is also seen that this growth presents a huge consumer opportunity for both domestic and global companies in the energy space. The existing imbalance between demand and supply of energy sources call for augmentation of forms of energy collectively as we face possible energy supply constraint in future. And hydrogen is seen as one of the possible candidates to fill the gap. So from hydrogen demand perspective, oil and gas sector is expected to drive the demand for hydrogen with use as feedstock in refineries as blending fuel to natural gas. It is also seen that blending of hydrogen in gas pipeline will help us reduce dependence on imported gas, which accounts for more than 50% of current consumption as we move to increase the share of gas in our energy mix. It is also seen that as we are moving to alternate and renewable energy or pathways, it is extremely important for the drivers of oil and gas fraternity to familiarize themselves with the energy trends and also upgrade and equip themselves with technology developments in the new frontiers. As the Oil India Director of Operation mentioned about the pilot project on clean hydrogen and various efforts they are taking on clean hydrogen apart from the renewable energy of wind and solar. Other public sector units are also working on various capacities. Some refiners are also have floated EOI on for commercial plants for use of green hydrogen as feedstock in refineries. So there is a lot of activity happening around green hydrogen in oil and gas sector, apart from mobility part, which is also moving forward. If we recall recently, Mr. Gadkari had inaugurated a hydrogen fuel-based car, Mirai by Toyota in India. So that's just a beginning, but this will go forward, and there are a lot of activity at all stakeholders, technologists, investors, academicians, researchers. They're all working together, and there's a kind of activity which shows a good sign, and that activity, why some people say that reminds of solar thing which started 10, 12 years back. So let's hope this takes up same path as solar energy has taken in India, and we becomes one of the major producer of clean hydrogen in the world. So in view of this, I strongly believe that India is in the right cusp of time, and there is an opportunity for action to shape the advent of hydrogen in the country. Government of India, like our ministry efforts, are aligned towards the developing of further deepening reform agenda for benefit of citizens of this country. Finally, to sum up, I hope this webinar will enable all participants the opportunity to interact, brainstorm, share best knowledges in the area of hydrogen with the sole objectivity to move on the path of more sustainable future. Before I end, I just wanted to share that unlike solar energy development which happened in country, green hydrogen has one more challenge of transportation storage to the end user. So transportation and storage for green hydrogen or hydrogen per se is a very difficult and it's yet not mature. So this is one of the gap which when we try to plan for a growth of green hydrogen, this gap is serious and this gap needs a lot of interaction among researchers and technologists. I hope today's seminar will cover this part also. Thank you and have a great seminar. Thanks everyone.
Thank you so much, sir, for your enlightening views and taking us through the development taking place in the space of hydrogen. Now we'll move to our esteemed speakers who will be discussing on this very pertinent topic, hydrogen, the fuel of future. I would request our guests to give a brief introduction and share their thought. For this, we'll start with Mr. Siddharth R. Mayur, who will also be moderating this discussion. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Gaurav, and thank you for inviting me and all the panelists today for this very important topic. Like what Sunil Kumarji rightly mentioned, and also Goswamiji echoed that in terms of where we are going with hydrogen. And I would like to start this panel discussion with a thought. Actually, all of us know a lot about green hydrogen. There is a lot of talk happening about hydrogen in the corridors of power and also on the ground with oil companies and also other energy companies, private companies coming in and contributing. So before I introduce my fellow panelists, I would like to take a couple of minutes to put down my views. And I'm jumping the queue here because I have a flight to catch in the next half an hour. I actually had a flight in the morning which got cancelled, and so I had to take a different flight. And I'm actually on my way to Jorat, where we are commissioning the green hydrogen plant that Goswamiji mentioned. So, Sunil Kumarji, I kind of echo your thoughts on the storage part, and I would like to talk about storage and transportation a little more. And then I would go to the second topic that Goswamiji also mentioned in his inaugural address. Sir, liquid organic hydrogen carrier or hydrogen in liquid form. These are looked at as very interesting and important mediums of transporting hydrogen. But again, these are good for transporting hydrogens at shorter distances. So if you're talking about 400 kilometers, 500 kilometers, or maybe 1,000 kilometers. But if you have to transport hydrogen beyond this, there is a lot of work that is happening, sir. And this is something that we do not generally have in our narrative, either at the government level or even on private level, is power to X. And this is the topic of my presentation today, is that how can we take the hydrogen molecule, make the hydrogen molecule as a dominant molecule and produce other derivatives of emerging from hydrogen. So we're talking about ammonia, which if you combine hydrogen with nitrogen, then you produce ammonia. There is also a technology, sir, where you can do co-electrolysis. So amongst the electrolyzers that are being built, in the co-electrolysis format, you take carbon dioxide as the input fuel. So wherever you have carbon dioxide as output, or which is flared either in refineries or biogas plants or cement industries or process industries, you can take the carbon dioxide, do a co-synthesis and produce synthetic crude. So you basically produce CO plus H2. And from the synthetic crude, you can produce different derivatives. And we have successfully at my company produced kerosene, which is aviation grade. We call it sustainable aviation fuel. We've also been able to produce methanol, pure methane, high value waxes, and other building blocks petrochemical industry like PC, that is ethylene dichloride. So decarbonization for our company at H2E, decarbonization is our first goal and defossilization the second. So using hydrogen as a molecule and getting into the power to X, I think would be a very important step for India, because you cannot immediately shift the industries like aviation or industries like marine to hydrogen overnight. So we can have use cases where refineries start using hydrogen, or we start blending hydrogen with natural gas. But at the same time, if you're looking at the large emitters like aviation or marine, there you need to have kerosene, or you need to have ammonia. And if you can produce this from a green source, then we have a use case. So I will also present another project that my company is doing, sir, where we are producing a fuel cell which can take ammonia as an input. So it's a solid oxide fuel cell, and we are trying to build a 1.2 kilowatt shipping liner. So that's for basically transportation. So the idea is to also make the waters clean. So even if you're looking at India as a context, you're looking at river transportation. If you go to Kerala, the Kochi area, if you look at even Assam, you have the entire Brahmaputra basin, where a lot of transportation of people as well as goods happens on ship. So if we can decarbonize the entire shipping sector using this power to X, where I can produce ammonia on site, or in terms of the aviation industry, where I can produce sustainable aviation fuel, and therefore achieve the target set up by the Honorable Prime Minister to become energy independent by 2047. So I think we as private enterprises, and I'm very happy and proud to say that there is so much support even from the public sectors and the government. So we are working hand in hand to bring about this entire revolution, as I call it. This is the green revolution that is happening for the first time in energy. It happened with solar, but the entire gambit, see, solar again was a backup solution, but the entire gambit that is happening right now. And Sunil Kumarji, I would like to, assure you from the private sector side also, that the level of work that we are doing with the academia and with the oil companies, energy companies, we will be able to do what solar did in 15 years, we will be able to achieve in 5 years. Because the rate at which hydrogen adoption can happen in different industries is so massive. And if we look at this power to X scenario, even at a MoP&G level, we will be able to actually get into gigawatt scale. And companies like ours, we are, happy to also mention that we are setting up a gigawatt scale electrolyzer facility in Maharashtra, which will produce alkaline AEM and solid oxide electrolyzers. We have formed a separate company for that. It is called Homi Hydrogen. It is a tribute to the great Dr. Homi Bhabha. So we've named it as Homi Hydrogen. And last but not the least, I want to pick up what Goswami ji said, that hydrogen is not just the future, it is the present. And we are actually experiencing that present, sir. My office has been running on hydrogen and fuel cells for the last 4 years. So we've not used the grid at all. So it is here today. It is right now. And from here on, over the next 3 to 4 years, we have this incredible opportunity to not only uh, bring hydrogen to the Indian economy, but also become an exporter. So export of ammonia or export of methanol. So I would conclude my 2 cents to this discussion here, and introduce my fellow panelists. We have Dr. Sturle Pedersen. I think he's one of the biggest ambassadors of hydrogen that I have personally met. He, of course, is a Norwegian citizen, but these days he puts more time in India than in Norway. And he's trying to bring in a lot of technologies from Norway and Europe into India, so that we can actualize the entire concept of the hydrogen economy. And Mr. CM Jain, who has been, he's an electrical engineer, of course, but he's been a big a proponent of the entire renewable space. So he's been working in solar 1992, I think almost when solar actually started in this country. And he has wealth of experience on the consulting side and helping companies like ours, or even larger enterprises, on their strategies on green energy. And Dr. Ranjit, who would be joining, I think, in the next 5 minutes, he brings the wealth of academia. And sir, we are at such an interesting cusp today that industry, academia, and the government are working together on applied research. So earlier, research used to only happen on material level, or to produce patents, or to massage the ego of scientists. But now research is actually happening to produce technologies which can be cost effective and which can be effective in the Indian and the global scenario. So very excited and happy to be a part of this webinar. And not only this webinar, I think This is the best time to be alive and working in India. The level of work that is happening and the push that is coming from the government, we as private enterprise are excited, and I think we will deliver to the promise that the Honorable Prime and MoP&NG also has put forth. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and I now hand over the stage to Sturle, and Sturle can walk us through what is happening globally and how India can adopt to the global initiative. Sturle, over to you.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Distinguished scientists, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to participate in this seminar on hydrogen, the fuel for the future. With the demand for green hydrogen growing stronger all the time, an international hydrogen market is emerging that is generating new partnership, opening up new investment and employment opportunities, and adding flexibility to the global green energy supply. With the evidence for climate change all around us, public pressure is growing for government to meet their action and their carbon neutral targets. Industries to decarbonize and energy companies to divest away from high polluting fossil fuel. At the same time, the increasing incidence of extreme weather events is stressing energy supply network globally, pushing the adoption of green hydrogen microgrids to improve flexibility. As a result, the green hydrogen energy market is set up to keep growing for the next decades. By 2040, hydrogen fuel production is expected to expand by over 200 gigawatt globally, and even so, demand is likely to outstrip supply. The global hydrogen production size is forecasted to exceed 220 billion by 2030, a growth rate that is close to 5.4%. These trends form the foundation of a global trade in green hydrogen. Most green energy isn't easy to transport, which has been highlighted here earlier by some of the other speakers. Solar, wind, and hydroelectric and nuclear power all need to be situated close to the market that use them, requiring every region to develop their own infrastructure. However, hydrogen fuel cells are easily transportable, so they can be produced and shipped anywhere in the world. And it is, as it has been also pointed out, a lot of research ongoing today in this field. And we see that this issue of transportation has its challenges, but it will be resolved in the near future. Lowering the cost of green hydrogen production is seen as critical for adoption, adding to the importance of encouraging production in the places where cost is low. These areas with the best conditions, such as India and Africa and other countries in Asia, can become net hydrogen exporters for the rest of the world, helping conditions such as over time, we could see the development of a global import-export market for green hydrogen, similar for the oil and gas, with hubs in strategic locations. As new players emerge and new partnerships are formed, rising demand for green hydrogen could alter the balance of political power around the world. And we see that the new green hydrogen market could have significance that goes beyond economics. As an effective and environmental friendly energy carrier, hydrogen will make a key contribution to a sustainable development of energy. Greenstat consider green hydrogen to be an ultimate fuel of the future. Greenstat is a green energy company and was part of the Christian Michelsen Research Institute in Norway, which was founded by the first Prime Minister. We have been working with hydrogen for almost 5 decades and is today participating in hydrogen projects in many countries. As one of the world's largest energy exporters, Norway advances the energy security in the energy global market. At the same time, as a global advocate for climate change mitigation, Norway is committed to environmental sustainability and climate policy. Norway has been one of the front runners in the green hydrogen technology and expertise, and have almost 100 years of experience of producing green hydrogen. which we want to share and therefore established the Center of Excellence in Hydrogen in India last year with key shareholders and with IIT Delhi. With the developments in hydrogen technology, the potential for emission reduction is promising. Continuing our decade of energy innovation, we are participating in several projects to show how the green hydrogen can provide scalable and profitable opportunities. In the journey to zero carbon energy, many people believe that hydrogen should be considered the world destination fuel. Clean hydrogen is currently receiving a strong support from government and businesses around the world, which we have heard, with the number of policies and projects expanding quite rapidly. Europe is taking the lead, and more than 70% of these projects is taking place in Europe. However, Asia is a good number 2 after Australia and Japan. And we see that there is more interest and more action in India these days than in any other country. Hydrogen can help to deal with various critical energy challenges, including helping to store the variable output from renewable like solar PV and wind to better match demand. It offers ways to decarbonize a range of sectors, including long-haul transport, chemicals and iron and steel, which is important industry also for India, where it's providing difficult to meaningfully reduce the emission. It can also help to improve air quality and strengthen energy security. Hydrogen is today enjoying unprecedented momentum driven by the governments that both import and export energy, as well as renewable industry, electricity and gas utilities, automakers, oil and gas companies, and many more. To build on this momentum, governments and the private sector and other stakeholders need to scale up the hydrogen projects around the world. A lot is done today, but more is needed. Hydrogen is still faces significant challenges. Producing hydrogen from low carbon energy is still costly at the moment. The development of hydrogen infrastructure is slow and holding back, and we need to do more to it in this area to be able to fulfill our goal of zero emission by 2050. The recent success of solar PV, wind, batteries, and electric vehicles have shown that policy and technology innovation have the power to build global clean energy industries. The key pillars of decarbonization of the global energy systems are energy efficiency, electrification, renewables, hydrogen and hydrogen-based fuel, and carbon capture utility storage. The importance of hydrogen in the net zero emission scenarios is reflected in its increasing share of emission reduction. Hydrogen is a game changer. India should not lose valuable time, but act fast to secure leadership in the transition for fossil to clean energy solution. It creates jobs and revenues for the country. Thank you.
May I now request Mr.
Thank you.
Jain to...
And I, of course, have a couple of questions which I will, if time permits. But I think we can have presentation. Jain sir, then we can get into the discussion.
Is Mr. Ranjit is coming first? Siddharth?
Yeah, I have joined.
Yeah, okay, please.
Oh, you have joined? Okay. So, Dr. Ranjit, if you can make your presentation and then Mr. Jain can do the final presentation.
Okay. So we are talking about green hydrogen. To make green hydrogen, we simply use renewable energies like solar, wind to just power the electrolyzer. Today, only like about very small percentage of hydrogen we produce is green, and still it is very expensive. But the prices are really going down. It's because of two reasons. The thing is like electrolyzers are cheaper as we are moving towards very larger projects with upscale techniques. And the biggest thing is the price of renewables and the electricity from the renewable energies are falling consistently. And Department of Energy USA it predicted that green hydrogen will be cheaper than blue hydrogen by 2020, and it would be cheaper than gray hydrogen by 2020. So we can make tons of hydrogen just by running the electrolyzer, and we can just run the hydrogen economy by 2050. The problem doesn't solve here. The biggest problem we have in green hydrogen, and which is still remaining, is the hydrogen storage capability, and the transport of the hydrogen. The green hydrogen is really challenging because hydrogen is relatively low energy density than other gases, which requires nearly 3 times more space than conventional compressed natural gas. So that we really need to build very large and efficient hydrogen storage facility, which is still challenging. And hydrogen has to be kept under huge pressure, and building such infrastructure is going to be very expensive. So we need to come up with new strategies or technique where we can store hydrogen using advanced material science techniques. Currently, hydrogen storage is possible in two ways. One is physical based, where we store hydrogen by compressed gas or with cold or cyro technique, or liquid based hydrogen storage. While in case of materials based hydrogen storage, we can store hydrogen in porous materials like MOFs, hydrides, or organics, or even as chemical hydrogen. But however, the problem doesn't ends here. When we are talking about hydrogen storage, we need to overcome several issues due to volumetric energy density and gravimetric energy density of these storage materials. And we should also think about kinetics and thermodynamics and efficiency of these energy storage materials. And for example, compressing the hydrogen gas at 200 bar, the cylinder size what we require would be 25% of the hydrogen core size. While if you are compressing the hydrogen at same pressure, but if you are moving from gas state to liquid state, the amount of cylinder size would be just 10% of the hydrogen core state. So while if you are still moving from liquid state to solid state, the amount of size that is required to store the same amount of hydrogen would be just 5% of the hydrogen core state. And we should possibly think about the storage techniques what we are going to adapt for the green hydrogen storage. And also we should also think about the energy loss which is happening during the green hydrogen transportation process. Nearly 60% of the energy is lost from throughout the process, from the hydrogen production through to storage, and then to refilling the hydrogen in electrical vehicles, or refilling in end user application, and then during processing application. While this is just 20% in electrical car, the energy loss is just 20% in electrical car which is powered by lithium ion batteries. So we should consider these two issues and come up with some engineering process which could overcome these difficulties in hydrogen storage and transportation process. We are at a point where there is a great momentum built around green hydrogen. So we must really convert this momentum into a real asset, so that like around 20% of the energy need in 2050 would be satisfied by the green hydrogen in near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Randeep, for this perspective. And I think I would add one line to what you said about lithium versus hydrogen. And one of the key future of fuel is hydrogen can be completely made in India or manufactured locally.
Actually, your
Where
voice is really
a lot
audible.
of lithium and cobalt.
I'm sorry, your voice is not clear.
So, okay. No, okay. I think Mr. Jain can take over and start his presentation.
Okay, thank you, Siddharth. Thanks, Mr. Sunil Kumar, Joint Secretary, and Mr. Pankaj Goswami, Director of Operations, for giving this opportunity to the undersigned for speaking and discussing about the policies and what is more required from the policies. The policy matters are already announced and are well known to the persons who are in the industry of hydrogen or renewable energy. But there are certain more points which is required in the phase 2 of the hydrogen policy, which is going to be published shortly. I will take you all to some policy matters and what is required more through my presentation. I'll just give me a second. So, Prime Minister announced the National Hydrogen Mission in August 15 on our 75th Independence Day, with the objective that hydrogen will reduce the depleting of our planet energy requirements. India has launched Green Hydrogen Mission, and the mission is for providing various regulations, maximizing domestic manufacturing, promote electrolyzer manufacturing, and investment in R&D products, commercialization of more mature technology which are available in the world. In this November 2021, as Mr. Goswami has informed, in COP26, the Prime Minister has made some more commitments which are enumerated here, but I am just taking you through some other slides. Now, the green hydrogen policy was the first part of the policy was announced on 17 February by Ministry of Power, and which says that the hydrogen, emphasizing the storage of hydrogen and production of hydrogen by targeting 5 million tons per year by 2030. For this, the government has announced that the projects of renewable energy for producing green hydrogen will not pay any interstate transmission charges commissioned till 30th June 2025. Are you able to see my slides, sir, or not?
No, no, slides are not visible.
Jain sir, maybe you can just go through the
I will just go through
presentation itself.
Are you able to see or not?
Yeah, because it is.
Now we
I
can
think,
see. Yes, yes, it's good.
Yeah. So
now we can see. Yes.
I will start from the policy. Before that, I have already spoken, so we will not discuss more about that. Now, about the policy matters, I was coming that the government of the Ministry of Power has already announced a holiday for interstate transmission charges till 30th June 2025. the regulators has to now notify all these policies. However, to encourage I'm just giving the more policy initiatives required. The state electricity regulators has to notify all these in their regulations. Otherwise, these will not be implemented. Now, the 30 days banking allowed by ministry is not sufficient. If you go for wind, solar, hybrid projects, because the wind energy is available mostly for 4 months. The 70% of the wind energy will be produced in 4 to 5 months period, whereas the solar is approximately same every year plus minus 10%, every month plus minus 10%. So the wind energy required a higher banking days, which is around 120 days. Similarly, when we go for open access, we have to pay transmission charges. Government of India has exempted the ISTS charges of CTU, but the states are earlier exempting or charging lesser transmission charges, but now they are charging most of the cases in normal transmission charge, which will increase the cost of hydrogen. And for that, it is suggested that either it should be zero or it should be on energy basis and not on the power capacity on megawatt basis. The electrolyzer production should be incentivized by giving some VCF and some production incentive on green hydrogen units for next 5 years, products which are plants coming for next 5 years. As given earlier in RE, renewable energy income tax holiday can be provided for 15 years. The IPPs who are aspiring to produce hydrogen needs to be allowed for any electrolyzer technology with minimum guaranteed performance benchmark, and not that we land into obsolete technologies. Other ministries should also participate and provide incentives for this green hydrogen. The regulations should come for compulsorily consumption of green hydrogen for existing refining ammonia and steel plant. And for future plants, they must have minimum 25% of hydrogen requirement through green. They must meet minimum 25% through green hydrogen, so that the green hydrogen will be promoted automatically. As already discussed by various panelists, there is a hazardous nature of the hydrogen in storing, transportation. So for all this, the safety awareness programs are also required. Proper training of operating personnel are also required, and we must have a strong standards. BIS should develop a strong standard indigenously for this work, so that the same can be implemented in India. Now, the green hydrogen is these days being used, can be used for the purpose of substitute of natural gas or mixing with natural gas, storage of energy, balancing intermittent electricity supply from renewable energy, because renewable energy is not available 24 hours a day. So this can use an intermittent balancing one. Can also substitute coal, industrial applications in steel and fertilizer. Is also suitable for shipping and other heavy road freight vehicles. As already told by Mr. Siddharth, this can be used by making syngas and all this for aviation purpose also. So the variety of uses of hydrogen will go on increasing, but a lot of policy initiatives and policy changes are required, which can be done by the policymakers like Mr. Sunil Kumar is available on this panel right now. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Jain sir, for this detailed perspective, and also on the, especially on side. I think I will get into a few questions with the panelists, unless our distinguished guests have some questions. They are more than welcome to ask them. But I had a specific question for Mr. Pedersen from Norway. Is that how can Norway and how can your expertise contribute towards the safety part of it? Because everybody worries about safety of hydrogen. This has been said at various platforms. So we are moving into this. We've seen lithium batteries catching fire, and there always is a fear in people that hydrogen can just explode. So can you throw some light on the safety aspect of things, Sturle?
Sure, thank you, Sedat, for this question. As you point out rightly, the safety is the pillar for everything that we do. So Norway has been working on the safety and in oil and gas for decades, and the same also with hydrogen. And Norway has been actually working together with the Indian government, providing support and help, and want to formalize this collaboration with India. Norway is working with all the countries today on safety, and is the only country who has developed the tools to do simulations of different scenarios for hydrogen. And we started working with companies like Toyota and other in transportation, both for the land and the maritime sector, to make sure that hydrogen design solutions are safe. And I can say that still, if you have the regulation in place and policies, you need capacity at the building and training. And that's why we are also pushing for pilot and demo projects to make sure that all the agencies that is working on hydrogen and has responsibility for the implementation of these policies are familiar with it, are confident, and can do this in an efficient manner. So I hope the Norwegian foreign minister is coming to Delhi the next week, and I hope that there is a signing of the further collaboration on this area, because this is extremely important for the acceleration of this transition to the hydrogen economy.
Thank you, Sturley. I think that the safety part is something that not many people talk, and what you and GEXCON have been talking about all the while. So I'm sure that India will get onto the safety bandwagon faster than what rest of the world is doing. So coming to Dr. Ranjit, in terms of academia, IIT Guwahati, Goswamiji just mentioned that they have entered into a project with IIT Guwahati. So where do you think the academia contributing towards making this whole hydrogen economy sustainable? We talk about hydrogen as the fuel of the future, but the future will only be there if there is sustainability. So how do you think IITs and the academia can contribute towards this?
While talking about hydrogen economy, the few factors what we need to think about is bringing the price of the hydrogen, green hydrogen, to more economical level. So we should come up with new type of catalyst. Like currently electrolyzers use platinum as catalyst, so we should come up with new kind of catalyst that can produce hydrogen at cheaper price. And then considering Indian level, we could think about reverse engineering processes, those approaches can be used to utilize some the technologies. Like currently Toyota or Hyundai, they have a commercial fuel cells to power their emissionless vehicles. So we can reverse engineer those products so that we can have an indigenous technique, and that those and some engineering can be done to improve the quality of the current state of the art hydrogen fuel cells. So utilizing those approaches will improve the sustainability of hydrogen in Indian society.
Thank you, Dr. Ranjit. And I think my last question is for Mr. Jain, and I'm also taking off right now, so I will, with the kind permission of Joint Secretary MoP&NG and Goswamiji, I would log off in the next couple of minutes. But Jain sir, one question for you, which is a very curious question for me, is that you have this wealth of experience in working on solar projects, wind projects, and advising a lot of companies. What do you see is the major bottleneck on the private sector side? See, we always talk about the government doing policy and the government doing a lot of things, but what is it that the private sector can do? What is it that the PSUs and the private sector can do to enhance this entire entry into the hydrogen economy? You're muted, Jain sir.
Jain sir, please unmute.
Thank you, Siddharth, for a good question. The private sector and the PSUs, I think they are working right now. After the announcement of the Prime Minister, all are aggressively working on producing green hydrogen. And people like you are also working on reducing the cost of electrolyzer, which will reduce the cost of generation of hydrogen. The basic raw material is water and the energy. So the electrical energy which you need needs to be at a lower price, and the electrolyzer cost should reduce. For that, industry and the government has to work hand in hand. As I mentioned in my presentation, that a lot of things are required in policy from the Government of India, Ministry of Power and other ministries. Similarly, all the industries and PSUs will have to come out initially with some pilot projects to test different type of electrolyzers to see how this can run 24/7 on green renewable energy, because the solar energy is available in daytime, the wind is available in different times, but you can't get the renewable energy 365 days constantly. So banking has been allowed, which needs improvement, but all these will come slowly, pace by pace, phase by phase. But I think the start is good, and it requires a good push from the Government of India and the state governments for pushing this hydrogen, and industries too. All industrial associations are, I think, working, and they're asking for lot many information about green hydrogen. Thank you.
Thank you, Jain sir, and thank you, co-panelists. I think we've covered a lot of topics here, and Sunil, you had a point to make before I hand it over to Gaurav again.
Yes, just a short comment. As I mentioned, the Greens have, together with Indian Oil, set up a Center of Excellence in Hydrogen, and also with IIT Delhi. And this center is for international collaboration to make sure that we are sharing our technology and experience and expertise. So India can start with the latest development and experience and know-how from the pilot projects in Europe, who has been leading this. I believe that India can take a leadership in this. I see that you have the talents, you have the resources, and you're blessed with natural resources for the renewable. So that is the key to bring down the cost of the hydrogen, the green hydrogen. So I hope that this center that has been established can be a place that can be flourish, and new pilot and demo projects all over India can be set up, so we can scale up the capacity and work hand in hand with the government, the private sector, and the R&D community and the universities. We need a lot of engineers. There is 40 million jobs that is going to be created in this decade. And India can really take a position here. So I really hope the best, and I hope that if there is any questions about the Center of Excellence, please just send me emails, and I will put you in connection with Dr. Chitra, who is the director of this center. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunil. I think that's a very interesting perspective, which the Joint Secretary and the Joint Secretary will consider. And I think with this, I hand it back to Gaurav. And if there are any questions, we would be happy to take those either right now or even offline. And yeah, Gaurav, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this insightful discussion. I thank Mr. Siddharth, Mr. Peterson, Mr. Jain, and Dr. Ranjit for having this lively discussion on the topic and sharing their valuable insights. I also take this opportunity to thank Mr. Sunil Kumar, Joint Secretary, Refineries MoP&NG, for taking his time and sharing wonderful insights with us on the development taking place in the space of hydrogen. I thank Mr. Pankaj Kumar Goswami, Director Operations, Oil India Limited. And with this, we have come to an end of this webinar. We'll try and pursue these kinds of events again. And thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gaurav.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, everybody.